My name is Tara Bartikoski, and I am the Start Today Apprenticeship Program Manager. And we are just excited to be here again. As many of you probably heard, Governor Noem's announcement a couple weeks ago in support of registered apprenticeships in South Dakota through some financial services that we're excited to be able to share with all of you today. And we are just ready to be able to expand apprenticeships in South Dakota. And this gives us a really great opportunity to do that, to serve businesses in a way that we've never been able to before. And I'm hearing an echo. Is anybody else? We're good now. Thank you. And we're also able to serve apprentices in a way that we've never been able to before. And we're really excited to see how this can really change and impact registered apprenticeships, workforce, and that skilled pipeline of workers in South Dakota. So I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin and the rest of the team to share information with all of you. But if you have questions throughout the webinar that you don't want to lose, you can throw them in the chat. We'll try to get them answered, and we'll also leave some time at the end for a little Q&A. So thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you. I'm Caitlin Chemnitz, and I'm a labor program specialist with Registered Apprenticeships. And with Governor Noem's announcement, we have funding and services available to support registered apprenticeships. And today, our apprenticeship coordinators are going to share more about the funding opportunities and a little bit about registered apprenticeships. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Start Today team.
Hey guys, my name is Mason Sullivan, and I'm an apprenticeship coordinator statewide, but located in the Madison office.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I am an apprenticeship coordinator located out of the Brookings office.
And I am Rebecca Ortmeyer, and I am an apprenticeship coordinator out of the Sioux Falls office, and I'm going to get us started today talking about what registered apprenticeships are. So, a registered apprenticeship is a set training program that allows employees to earn a wage while they learn with hands-on and academic components to gain skills for an occupation. These occupations can be in any field, no matter the setting, from traditional fields such as electricians or plumbing to new fields that are being added now, including medical professions and educational professionals. For a registered apprenticeship program, training plans, which combine the experience and the education, are recognized by the U.S. Department of Labor as a national credential. There are 5 components to a registered apprenticeship program, starting with the businesses. As an apprenticeship coordinator, like myself and my other coworkers here, the members of our team will work with the businesses in developing the programs that fit your needs. Together, we create the hands-on training or on-the-job training, as well as the related instruction required for each occupation. Then each occupation is assigned progressive wage increases as the apprentice gains more knowledge and increases their responsibilities. Finally, when the training is complete, each apprentice will gain a national credential that will show the skills that they've learned in their apprenticeship. Again, each registered apprenticeship program is customized to the business's needs.
So the benefits of registered apprenticeships are what make them such an innovative workforce solution. Through registered apprenticeship programs, productivity and retention is increased while turnover is reduced through customized training and producing a skilled workforce and fostering diversity. Here are some of the greatest benefits that come from sponsoring a registered apprenticeship program. Across the nation, employers worry about their rapidly aging workforces. For businesses faced with the increasing likelihood that they won't be able to rely solely on buying their talent, apprenticeships can be an effective tool to build their talent instead. Additionally, registered apprenticeships help minimize your costs, which helps retain your workforce. And apprentices are loyal to the companies that invest in them. In fact, 93% of apprentices who complete their program stay with their employers. Additionally, registered apprenticeships focus on safety and quality skills that help make a positive impact on your bottom line. Through apprenticeships, businesses gain workers with customized skills to meet their specific standards. Sometimes a graduate or more experienced hire might not be the right fit for some businesses. Apprenticeship programs offer a post-secondary opportunity in rural communities where businesses and communities can grow your own workforce. As South Dakota is a very rural state, Apprenticeships offer an opportunity for individuals to gain an education, a good job, all while staying home. So how does a business go about developing a registered apprenticeship program? This graphic lays out the process in a step-by-step fashion so you can see what goes into building a program. So let's break it down. So first off, the exploration phase is basically exploring what you guys need, like your business needs. Maybe you're gonna apprentice one position, maybe you have multiple you'd like to set up programs with. So that'll be the first step, is identifying some of those needs. The second step will be where we'll be with you every step of the way, but we really come in heavy on the design portion. We basically take what your training plan that you have in place already, we'll formalize it into a document that we use, just so it looks good, so we can send it to our federal counterparts. After we get all that designed, we'll start looking at some partnerships. Available partnerships are across the state, usually with colleges and universities. You can use online resources and do it in-house, just whatever would fit your business, whatever would be easiest or best practices for you guys. The fourth step is then building. So once we identify those partners and have your training plan formalized, we'll continue to build it before we send it off to our state office of apprenticeship director, whose name is John Bolger. He's our federal counterpart, where he will approve them, and then we will get ready for the launch phase.
Now, what we have all been waiting for, funding your registered apprenticeship program. You may have heard Governor Kristi Noem's announcement of approving $7.9 million dedicated to supporting registered apprenticeships in South Dakota. Let's talk about what that means. Essentially, this means wherever you are in the registered apprenticeship process, we have the resources to support you. Start Today SD offers financial support for new and existing sponsors to alleviate upfront costs for the development and expansion of building registered apprenticeship programs. For those wanting to develop a new registered apprenticeship program, an employer or organization could be eligible for a one-time incentive up to $15,000. For existing sponsors wanting to expand their program, they could be eligible for a one-time incentive up to $10,000. You know what else is really great? We are also able to support registered apprentices more than ever before. The Start Today program will work to support sponsors, employers, and apprentices by providing learning and wage reimbursements, financial incentives, and support through the training period. Up to $6,500 is available in related instruction reimbursement funds per apprentice to help offset the educational component of registered apprenticeships. The Start Today program may provide the sponsor with up to 50% wage reimbursements for apprentices during the training period. Over the duration of a registered apprenticeship, oftentimes the best employees are pulled away from normal duties to mentor a new apprentice. This is an additional cost to the business. The Start Today program may provide a flat rate of $5,000 to the employer to offset the cost of pulling the mentor from normal duties. South Dakota is one of the only states to do this type of incentive. Finally, we have support services to help eliminate barriers for apprentices. These support services can help offset costs associated with work, such as tools, uniforms, transportation, and childcare. This means not only do we have the financial ability to develop and expand existing programs, we also have funding for wage reimbursements and incentives for the trainee and trainer, or mentee and mentor, if you will. Registered apprenticeships are very much a win-win in South Dakota. Let's take a look at how to apply. So to be able to apply for these programs, you would have to go to the starttodaysd.com website. We're going to go ahead and do that now. All right, bear with me here. All right, so this is our Start Today SD website. The information we just reviewed and the application is located here. Hover over Employers. Scroll down to Start Today SD Apprenticeship Funding. Give that a click here. You can see here, we do have information listed over our policies. Feel free to go back and check that out. This section here is dedicated to the Registered Apprenticeship Program Development and Expansion Incentives. Here is the link for that application. So that's the $10,000 and $15,000 one-time incentive payment. This is an Adobe format. So here you start here with the applicant information. So basic contact information, what your program design is, and the narrative. One of our tips and tricks is to prepare a document beforehand and have it ready to upload with answering all these questions in that document. So everything we look for with the application process is located here. So make sure to include that. You would click here to attach that document. This next section here is the certification. This just certifies that all information is accurate, best to your knowledge. You would click here to sign. You will not be able to submit this form if any of these fields with red asterisks are not completed. Once those are all completed and you click to sign, there will be a submit button that does pop up. Let's head back to our website to take a look at how to apply for those other support services to support registered apprentices that we did speak about. That is located just below with our financial services application form. All right, again, this is an Adobe sign form as well. You would have to complete this form in terms of sponsor information, business information, the apprentice information, what financial services you are applying for. The next section is next steps and acknowledgement. So here you would click to sign, certifying that all the information is true and correct. Again, the required fields are indicated with red asterisks. Those have to be completed before the submit button will pop up. With these forms, after these are completed, our Start Today team will be notified, and then we will reach out to you. One of our coordinators will be reaching out to you to determine eligibility or schedule any additional meetings, and just be there if you have any other questions. Let's jump back to the PowerPoint here. All right. So we would like to thank you for joining us today. Please like and follow us on Facebook and check us out online at starttodaysd.com. Be on the lookout for our next webinar, Building Apprenticeships and Sponsor Responsibilities, with our USDOL Office of Apprenticeship State Director, John Bolger. This webinar is scheduled for May 22nd at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, now matters, start today, succeed tomorrow. And now we will open it up for any questions you may have. Feel free to put those in the chat.
As you guys are typing questions, really what's important to really define or separate with some of these funding opportunities that we have is we have some funding that Ashley talked about, including program development. So when it comes to building registered apprenticeships, sometimes that takes a little bit of time up front to build those programs, to really develop it, to work through that. So that $10,000 and $15,000 is really to help offset some of those initial startup costs and there was initial training costs when it comes to developing a registered apprenticeship. And really it's broken down into two different pieces because we have a lot of, we have sponsors who are already existing that might have done that initial first piece, but looking to expand their program in some way. So we still wanted to offer some support to those current sponsors who we have quite a few on the call as well who are here today learning about this. But then we also recognize and understand that it takes a little bit of work up front to become a new sponsor of a program. And that's where an extra $5,000 is helpful for businesses businesses or organizations looking to become a new sponsor of a program. So that's how those are broken down a little bit because of that initial startup cost. And we do that at DLR through the application that Ashley showed you. Then those will be awarded through contracts with Department of Labor, and those will be paid out through our financial system where if an entity was awarded those funds, we'd develop a contract and get the information from that sponsor or that business and pay that out that way. So that's really how that funding would work. Now, when it comes to the other piece of funding that Ashley mentioned, that is really specific to the apprentices and the workers that you're hiring, that's going to be paid out a little differently because we'll put you in as a provider within our management system within DLR. And what that does is with every registered apprenticeship program, that automatically makes the sponsor eligible to be on our training provider list, which people can choose from. And it helps us to have sponsors as a provider for that training program. And then we can pay those services out in a different way. So there's a couple different ways that things will be paid out, but that's what our team does is we help kind of help you understand some of those pieces, some of the program development pieces, how we can best build your program for you, and then how we can best serve you and your apprentices that you're training through the program. So just wanted to kind of lay those out. Maybe you guys have more questions. I see some coming through the chat.
You have some good questions already coming up.
Perfect.
One for the team is Amy is asking, does anyone qualify to be an apprentice or is there a certain age group?
I'll take that one. So yeah, anyone can qualify to be an apprentice. Not really any certain age groups. We are working on some youth apprenticeship stuff that we're waiting on a little bit more guidance with for high school or secondary school kids. But other than that, anyone can qualify to be an apprentice. There's no age limit. Some of the hazards that work and like the workforce, anything like hazardous materials, some of that will require 18-year-olds. In an apprenticeship, there's some ways to kind of work around some of that, but we can get more into that if we have specific scenarios. But no age group. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
So there's not really, I think what Mason's saying is there's not really a specific age group targeted because really, our unemployment rate is really low in South Dakota. So we're not picky on, we're trying to engage different groups of people. So there's not really a targeted age group. We want to focus more on youth because we want to engage youth in the workforce. But really with every apprenticeship program, in order for it to be a registered program, there is a minimum age requirement of 16. So for every program, they have to be 16, but that's really flexible based on the company and the sponsor. So like Mason said, some sponsors will require 18 based on the type of work that they're doing, but really they have to be a minimum age of 16 in order to be a part of an apprenticeship program based on the federal regulations. Good question.
Our next question comes from Tammy. She is asking, would a CDL driver training or diesel mechanic qualify for the apprenticeship program?
I can
Yes.
go ahead and answer that one. Both of those would qualify for the registered apprenticeship program. We would definitely love to work with you, so feel free to get a hold of us, Tammy.
Do we need to have an apprentice applicant already in mind?
And I think what's really important to note about registered apprenticeships is that they've changed and evolved over the centuries because they've been around since the 1500s, and they're adding occupations all the time. So really, apprenticeships have like an apprenticeable occupation list. So every apprenticeship program or occupation is approved and vetted by U.S. Department of Labor. Right now, there's 1,400 occupations on that list. So it's really changed from what we used to think about apprenticeships being just trades or just a cement mason or just construction. It includes all of those because those are really great fitting apprenticeship programs, but it also casts a wider net for occupations that might need a training program like this. So there's lots of different occupations. So that's a really great question, Tammy. And there's a huge list already of programs that are already built and already approved. But that doesn't mean that if there's a program out there that you feel like is a need in your company and it's not there approved yet, that doesn't mean that we can't work through that process with you to get it approved nationally, which also makes it available for the whole country to use, which is great.
Hey, the next question comes from Brooke. So that Ashley mentioned a one-time funding. Is this per registered apprenticeship or per business?
So with the one-time funding for the $10,000 and well, we'll start with the 15,000. So the initial to get your program started, that is a one-time eligibility. And then Tara, can you provide clarification on the $10,000 for the existing programs?
What clarification? Sorry.
For the $10,000 or for the $10,000 for the existing registered apprenticeship programs.
Yeah, so existing sponsors who already are sponsors of apprenticeship programs could qualify for up to $10,000 to add additional occupations to their program or expand it in another way. So that funding is available for those existing sponsors in an effort to expand their apprenticeship programs to offer more training opportunities for individuals. I hope that helps answer the question.
Can I hop on there then and ask a follow-up question for that? This is Brooke. That's my
Brooke?
question. Okay,
Brooke.
hi. So, so obviously, we're an existing sponsor and an employer with the opportunity to have several occupations in there. So, just seeking that clarification. So, is it 10,000 per business? Like that would be the maximum that we would be able to apply for? Or if we were going to come up with one in,
I think
let's
it
say
would
we
be
don't.
per expansion or per occupation program.
occupation.
You could be eligible for those, Brooke.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next question comes from Holly. She is asking, do we need to have an apprentice applicant already in line, or does the Department of Labor help us find candidates?
Probably a great question.
Yeah, so no, you don't need to have an applicant already in line. If you're looking at building a program, you'll still just hire like you normally would as a business. The Department of Labor can also help find candidates if you would prefer, or maybe there's some people that come into our local job service offices that are working with somebody right now that are looking for work. So don't be afraid to reach out to your local job service office, no matter where you're located at, and they could, help you find someone. Or if you already have people applying for positions that are open in your business, those people will work too.
Our next question comes from Bill. He is asking, we are developing a program to satisfy real estate appraisal experience requirements, like a flight simulator for appraisers. Would individuals be eligible to apply for the Start Today funding of $5,000 for that type of program?
This to me. Sorry, is anybody else gonna? Did I answer that?
For it, Tara?
Yeah. Yeah, if it's a program that's approved by USDOL, we're able to register it with US Department of Labor, then that would qualify for those services and those funded services that we have. So if we can register it and get it to be a registered program, then that would qualify.
Next, we have Kevin asking, can a hair salon apprenticing stylist count if they are previously licensed as a cosmetologist when they come to our program?
This is a good question, Kevin, and I think it would depend on the program and how it's built and designed. If it's like we talked about those components, and if it's able to be a registered apprenticeship program, it wouldn't matter if those cosmetologists are already licensed, but they'd have to go through that program in order to be eligible for any of those funding. So if they're already licensed, already trained, they probably wouldn't qualify for some of those individual apprenticeship services if they already are a licensed cosmetologist. But my question is, so that one would be, I would think that one would be a situation where you'd probably have like a new employee or an existing employee coming in that has to be licensed or has to go through that process of being trained. That's really what the apprenticeship is designed for. And another piece to that too, which is something to note, is that apprenticeships aren't always just for new employees or new hires to your company. They can also be a really great opportunity to upskill or train your current employees in entry-level positions. If you have something that's a position that needs higher skilled, or they need to be trained in a certain way, an apprenticeship can be a really great fit for that as well. That answers that question.
Okay, I have another question from Brooke. She is wondering if these funds are in addition to the Title I programs.
Yeah,
good
they
question, Brooke.
are.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
that is a good question. Sorry, Tara. They are. So if you have a Title I eligible participant or job applicant, they still qualify for Title I funding as well as this apprenticeship funding that came from the governor's office. Again, that would be another area where maybe your local job service office has some people in mind, or someone's working with a Title I eligible individual.
Can I hop in to add on to that
Yep,
quick, Rebecca?
Thank you, Kendra.
Good afternoon, everybody. Kendra Ringsmeyer, Director of Workforce Development for the Department of Labor and Regulation. Brooke has been working with us for a while. She is coming to us from Huron and is just like well versed in this. But for others on, you may not be familiar with what Title I is referencing. So the Department of Labor has the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and we have funding that's available to help individuals attend training if they're eligible for our program. So there's certain eligibility for that. Certainly, as Mason said, this is in addition to that funding that might be available. So if you have somebody who's working with Department of Labor, which is always a good reason to have that partnership with your job service office, because it is a good funnel if somebody's working with us already, that maybe we can use some of those resources to assist. And I believe earlier, Tara had mentioned our eligible training provider list. So if you have a registered apprenticeship program that is approved, USDOL has us, in order to put our Title I funding to a program, it must be on our eligible training provider list. On the bright side, if you are a registered apprenticeship program in good standing with U.S. Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship, you can elect to be on that eligible training provider list. And we could use some of that financial resources there too, if the employee that you're hiring is eligible for that funding. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Kendra. I appreciate it. Okay, our next question comes from USD. It states on the application, how detailed should the narrative description be?
And this is a good question. You want to take this, Caitlin?
Yeah, I can take this one. We didn't set a minimum or maximum number of pages for that narrative. And so it really just needs to make sure that it covers those points that are outlined in that application. So the brief description, the kind of the vision, partnership, and the kind of the sustainability plan. So as long as it covers all of that information and, is understandable, then that's kind of how detailed it needs to be. So no minimum or maximum number of pages.
I always think of too, when it comes to applications, unless we've worked with you before, we probably don't know your company or your business. So writing it in a way that you can just help us understand what your vision is and what some of your goals are for it, so we can better understand as we're reviewing it. It kind of gives us an idea and helps us when it comes to assignment and what we're looking at when it comes to building your program. So
Question comes from Cody. The question is, will apprenticeship programs have one apprenticeship coordinator for all the services, i.e. program development, apprentice financial services? And then how or when do those coordinators get assigned to each program?
So I'll
this is a
take this
great
one.
question. Go ahead, Jason.
So Cody, I've been working with you a little bit already regarding some other things. So I will be your main point of contact, your apprenticeship coordinator that helps you with all of the questions you've listed here, the program development, financial services. And I'm also the one that assigns them to each one of us. I get the emails that come in or the inquiries that come in about setting up a program. And then what I try to do is a little bit more geographically, excuse me. But we're all statewide, so I've got some businesses I'm working out with on West River too. So we try to keep it pretty close to where that home office is, but if we can't, we travel a lot. We go statewide. So, and then I'm the one that does all the assigning of the programs.
And I think Cody too, which is nice. I think when it comes to like our goal, as we are just launching a lot of these things, we don't quite know how it'll work and we might have to adjust. But I think just like what you're talking about, like having Mason as a point of contact or having one coordinator for your main point of contact for your business or your sponsorship or your program is really our goal, so that you have one person that you know you can go to if you have questions, or if you know something came up that you're like, oh, I got to check in. And then having one person to be that point of contact for apprentices is our goal. However, that might not make sense, or it might, it might not work all the time, especially if you have a large cohort of apprentices coming in. We might have to dish that out a little bit more just based on capacity. But our goal is to really allow sponsors and businesses to have one point of contact, because it helps to streamline that information. And we've really heard some great feedback from the businesses that we've been able to do that with so far. So that's really our goal, but it might not happen all the time. But thanks for that question, Cody.
I have quite a few questions from Shar, so we're going to hit all of them at once here, but I'll give them to you one at a time. Can you be an existing business but start a new apprenticeship program that would allow you to qualify for the 15 grant?
Yes. So this is really based on new apprenticeship programs and availability of these training programs. You don't have to be a new business. You can be in a business that's been around for years and wanting to build a new apprenticeship program, but it would need to be new standards that are signed and approved by USDOL for that $15,000.
Second part of their question is, can college students from BHSU who haven't graduated but don't have related work experience work in an apprenticeship?
And that's a question, as we probably would look at those based on individuals that come through. But with apprenticeship programs, really one of the main concepts is that a lot of programs that we build are based on competencies and based on where apprentices are at. It's really designed for the business, but at the level of the apprentice. So if there's some programs that have college graduates that enter into an apprenticeship program, I think we had one of those in our professional brewing apprenticeship, where somebody had a bachelor's degree and entered into that apprenticeship to be a professional brewer. So we have situations like that happen. And really, with an apprenticeship program, you have on-the-job learning, and then Rebecca talked about that experience or the related training or the classroom education. And if those courses at BHU relate or can count towards that apprenticeship, then they'll get credit for all of that training that they had. So it's really based on the program that's built and the credits and the information that apprentice already has. So we always look at that individually based on each apprentice.
And last question I have from Shar is, where can they find an occupational list of qualified titles that have already been created?
That's a good question. I'm sure somebody will be able to throw that link in the chat, because we do have a link that we share with people that USDOL has an approved occupation list, and it can be a downloadable Excel file, or you can search for it on their website. So we'll probably throw that in the chat for you so you can see and search some of those occupations that are already out there.
This question is coming from Kevin. What amount of estimated time is going to be required to complete your program, and how much paperwork will be required to show for what's being done?
I can take this one. So, in terms of required time, we really like to get to know the business. So get to know what your business is. And sometimes, depending on the occupation, it can take a lot more time, but we alleviate a lot of the paperwork. Literally, we send you the standards, fill out the paperwork for you. Essentially, it's just a signature and reviewing. So putting an exact time amount on that is kind of hard depending on what the occupation is.
Another good point to make is that the secondary webinar that we'll have on the 22nd of May, we'll be going over a little bit more about what a sponsor will do in the role of creating the registered apprenticeship. So make sure you guys come back and listen into that webinar as well. Okay, the next one comes from Michaela, and I think this has some to do with that as well. She states, in regards to registering as an apprenticeship, is that the same as the first PDF you showed us called Program and Development and Expansion application, or is it a one-time funding application? Or is there another application to register as an apprenticeship?
And this one, I think we might need clarification. I'm assuming that you mean as an apprentice versus apprenticeship, because those are two different things when we talk about an apprenticeship program versus an apprentice. But yes, there's two different applications for those. There's one for that program development for new sponsors and existing sponsors. That includes kind of the program plan. And then there is a separate application to seek funding for the apprentice. Now, registering as an apprentice with the program is a little different. So with an apprenticeship program, the sponsor builds a program, and apprentices who are going to be in that program will be hired by that business, just to make sure that's clear. That apprentices won't come to here to be registered and placed in an apprenticeship program. That sponsor and business is really going to be the ones that are doing that hiring process and registering those apprentices themselves. Now, for the funding to support those apprentices in that program, there will be a separate application for that. And I believe Ashley showed that on the website as well. I think that was kind of your question. So if I didn't answer that, or if there's needs more clarification, please let me know.
Kayla, I can touch on that as well. The application that we showed you, the first one was for the application for funding and to work with us at the Department of Labor with an apprenticeship coordinator. Through the process of building the apprenticeship, we will then get approval for it to be registered. We'll work with our US DOL counterpart to get that registered as part of your process of building the program with us. So there's no other application. It's the building of the program that will do that for us. And then like Tara said, to get the apprentices registered, they will work that through us as well.
And I think too, something we can hit on too in the next webinar on the 22nd, because we don't want to overload you with so much information. But when a sponsor has a registered apprenticeship program, there is a like a US Department of Labor database that a sponsor is responsible for tracking apprentices. Now, that really is just a method for US Department of Labor to track them. So they put in demographic information, and really that's the start of an apprenticeship program. So when you have an apprentice go through the hiring process and you say, okay, we're gonna put this apprentice into the training program, they're gonna start today. So you would put them into a database that's called RAPIDS, and it's the Registered Apprenticeship Partners Information Database System. It's one of those acronyms that we love in government. But it's really just an online database that sponsors have access to. They have their own accounts, and they track their information, or they input information for apprentices into it. Now, when it comes to individual tracking of the program, that's up to sponsor. And some of our current sponsors can maybe even chime in too if they have any opinions. But really, the only real requirement that our state director has is that you enter an apprentice into that database system, and then you complete them when they're done. So if you use QuickBooks or Excel sheets to track their hours and their related training, or if they're going to school and you have transcripts and you organize them or have them file them in your own method, you just have to have your own method, and it's the same for everybody. And Brooke, are you on? Did you have an opinion or any thoughts?
Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Sorry.
Is it, yeah, because it's not something you have to log into every day and put in a bunch of information every day, but it's more of a, and entering them into the apprenticeship and mainly, exiting them when they're done.
Yep, it's a good reminder too to have as you move each apprentice through the stages, just to keep going with them and check in on progress. Sometimes we in the beginning would put them in there and then I kind of forgot about them, but now we have a better system, and so and I don't know if there's been changes made on your guys' end too, but now there's notifications if there hasn't been any activity or if they're overdue, and that is very helpful to go forward with those too. And all of the forms that everything has, I think, progressed in the Rapids world. In the beginning, it was really scary, and now it's really easy to use.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Brooke, for easing everybody
You bet.
today.
Okay, next question is from Holly. She's wondering how long it takes for the funding process.
That's a good question, Holly, because a lot of these are new, so it's hard to say like what our for sure process is. But when it comes to filling out the application, I believe in our policy, which you can find the information about the funding and the requirements and the documentation needed within our policy manual, which is on our website as well. I think we have like 15 days to review those applications. And then once those applications are reviewed and awarded, then we will enter into an agreement or a contract with you as a sponsor. And really, I think Ashley alluded to this earlier, sometimes that process can take a few weeks to maybe a month or two in developing the program. But really with our contracts, we'll have a couple of pieces that in order to get funding, you'll have to really just have some pieces or tasks that are met, including building your program with us, which might take a week or two to maybe 1 to 2 months. And then once the training plan is established, registered, then you'll have to put your apprentice in your program for a certain period, usually 90 days, 3 months. And then that's the other piece of that financial funding piece that will come out. So it kind of depends on how quickly things move and maybe what you already have established and developed within your organization for your training plan. If we have to develop it from scratch, it might take a little longer. But we have a great team of people, and we're adding to it to be able to serve all the businesses that are interested and excited about all these programs that we're going to be able to develop.
Can I
And
just
then
add to that really quick?
Go
So
for it, Kendra.
the apprenticeship coordinator will kind of give you a starting point of maybe what they're familiar with that might be in your business, or take what you have and then fill the paperwork out. And it's kind of a back and forth process where you're reviewing, making edits based on what you see to be necessary for your business and your occupation. So then it's just kind of a back and forth. So that's kind of, Ashley kind of referenced that earlier too, about that process of what that they help with.
Just a few more questions here. Bill has a follow-up question about appraisal. They're not currently listed in the Department of Labor apprenticeship list, but he believes that they were being reviewed, but they're not listed yet. Is that the only route, or would South Dakota have a different process of eligibility?
This is a good question too, because, when it comes to the national apprenticeship system, there's different ways that states can be structured. And you can either be an office of apprenticeship state where you have a state director who reviews and approves all the programs, or you can be a state apprenticeship agency, which kind of has a little bit of your own regulations to it. But really all of our whole system, everything's really US DOL approved, and all those occupations have to be approved and vetted by industry representatives at the US Department of Labor level. So if that appraiser isn't, which I don't know for sure, I haven't looked at the list, but it sounds like you have, Bill. But if it's not on the list and we need to go through that process, if they're already reviewing it, it's kind of a sit and wait, and then we can kind of get something done and registered once that's approved at the national level.
It looks like he actually answered and he said that they have been approved a couple of months ago. So he got an answer to his question, which is great.
Awesome.
Okay. The next one comes from Megan. For a company who already has a DOL apprenticeship program that's already set up, is that where the financial services to support the RAPs come in? If so, can you further elaborate on how that works and who is eligible?
Yes.
Yes. Yep, that is where those additional financial services to support the registered apprenticeships come in. So there are the financial incentives. So I think we touched on them earlier, but the related instruction reimbursement, and so that's to be paid, like if you use a third party as a related instruction provider, you can receive reimbursement up to a certain dollar amount for that. There's also the wage reimbursement. So for the apprentices during their initial training period, you can receive a wage reimbursement up to 50%. There is also a incentive paid for that mentor who, you might take, that's probably your top person or top couple people, and you take them away from their normal duties to provide that training and that mentorship. And so this is an incentive paid to the business for that as well, to kind of help offset some of those costs that are incurred by taking them away from their normal duties. So.
I think where this came in is, we first started to really establish a program and to really help grow and expand apprenticeships in South Dakota. There was a lot of focus on new sponsors and new programs. And now these services that Caitlin just walked through are really give us an opportunity to help those existing programs that already have a registered apprenticeship in place, that we can still continue to help support those training programs that are already out there.
Our next question comes from Philip. For occupations that do not require a certificate or license, are there specific parameters or guidelines on minimum requirements for the curriculum, instruction, or any part of the apprenticeship program?
I'm going to leave that to somebody else to answer.
Okay, I can take that one. So in terms of, there's a couple of different parts. There's that experience-based part, and that part depends on what the occupation is, how many hours, or at what point if you're reaching your competencies, that sort of thing. There's a couple of different ways we structure that. So that really depends on the occupation. However, for the related instruction or the education part, that is 144 hours per year. Now, this education it can be, you can provide the related technical instruction, so you can provide that, or you can use a third party. But really, like a lot of industries, we like to see that there is a focus on safety in both of those as well. So it really depends. That spreadsheet on apprenticeship.gov will tell you kind of the hours, but I would advise you that you don't really need to worry too much about that. Give us a call and then we can, figure that out for you. That's why we have a team here.
I have a couple more questions from Shar. Is there a South Dakota resident requirement for the apprentice or the employer to qualify?
Yes, there is. If you go into our policy, the apprentice does have to be in South Dakota, and the business has to be in South Dakota in order to receive this funding, as it's to support South Dakota businesses.
A follow-up question is, can the apprentices be 1099 contractors and qualify?
So in order for in a registered apprenticeship program, there has to be an established employer-employee relationship. The apprentices have to be paid a wage. That's one of those required components. So they would have to be a W-2 employee, not contracted or 1099. Questions?
One comes from Tammy. Is the $6,500 max or 50% of wage reimbursement available for all individuals enrolled in the apprenticeship program? Is it for each, or is it a maximum of total 6,500?
So those services would be based on apprentice. So it wouldn't be maximum per business, but if you have 2 apprentices in the same training program, it would be up to $6,500 for each of those apprentices.
Last call for questions. I got to the end of my list. If anyone else has a question, feel free to type it in the chat or unmute yourself and let us know. Good questions, guys. Great
Really good
answers.
questions.
Kayla has another question. What is the time period for an apprentice to work for the business to receive the 50% reimbursement?
Michaela, on this one, you can refer back to our policy a little bit, but we have a window of time where the apprentice has to be registered with the US or with Department of Labor. But really, we want to make sure we can help offset those initial training costs. So if they start work and if they start the apprenticeship day 1, we'd like to be able to help support that so they don't have to be in the program for a minimum period of time, but they do have to be registered with us within a certain amount of time. So you can have an apprentice that's 2 years in, and then we help reimburse. We want to help with that initial training period. And really why we want to do that is there's a lot of research around apprenticeships, and so they're really proven because there's lots of research done around them, and research tells us that most apprentices who do leave apprenticeship programs do so within that first year. But we also know that apprentices that can make it through that first year or complete their program are 93% more likely to stay with that employer. And that's where those really high retention rates come in. So that's where these funding opportunities really will help us to support those apprentices with barriers that they might have. So a lot of times they might still not be getting paid as well because they're not proficient yet. They're not an expert. They're not really that journey level person. So their wages might not be as high as they need to be, but maybe they still have some needs that we can help them with to help get them through that training. So that was really the intent of offering some of these services to help the apprentices get through that initial training period.
I had a couple more questions come in. Does this program include not-for-profit institutions?
I believe so. As long as the institution or the organization can be a registered apprenticeship sponsor and meet those requirements, they would qualify. They would be included in that.
Another question from Cody. Do the financial services application funds go to the apprentices and the journey mentors, or does only, or does the company then receive that funding if they've already paid out to both apprentices and journey members?
That's a good question. A little bit of both. So the on-the-job learning reimbursement, that would go to the business. The related instruction reimbursement would go to kind of whoever paid for that. So if that's the business or the participant or the apprentice, excuse me, then it would go to that person or whoever paid for that. And then that mentor, that $5,000 mentor incentive, that goes to the business.
And last question I see here is how long is the typical time period for an apprenticeship to be completed?
I can take this one here. So it really depends on that occupation. Some of them are 2,000 hours, which is about 1 year, or up to 8,000 hours, which can be that 4-year mark too. So that's more of like your more advanced careers or occupations that are there's a lot to learn, such as like electrician, plumbing, that sort of thing.
And then Holly, once you start building your program, that's an answer we'll have for you when we know what occupation you're looking at. We'll compare it to some other national occupations that have been approved if it's already in there, and kind of work with you from there to see how long that occupation would typically take to complete.
Those are all our questions. Yes, Holly, we can send you some contact information.
Thank you, Brooke, for being a good plug for us.
Yes, thanks, Brooke. Any other questions about apprenticeships can be just directed to Brooke. So she's our field expert. She's great. Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. We look forward to working with you and talking with all of you further, the more questions that you have, and the opportunities that we all will have together too. Hi, Dr. DeYoung.
What's up? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Yeah. So any other questions that you have? Kendra just threw our email into the chat as well, that you can email that. It goes to our general email. We can filter that out or answer questions that way if you have some. And look forward to marking your calendar. We'll put some information out on Facebook again, through social media, on our next webinar where we'll have our state director here too to answer some questions about sponsors' responsibilities, some of those things, to help better understand what that means. And we can kind of talk a little bit more, maybe answer some more questions about some of these funding opportunities we have available.